It is 9:17 p.m. The house is quiet. You've had a full dinner. Physically, your tank is full, your digestion is humming, and your energy reserves are topped off. There is absolutely no biological requirement for more food. But your brain? Your brain is screaming. You find yourself standing in the kitchen, bathed in the cold light of the refrigerator, looking for something that doesn't exist. You aren't hungry. You are restless. There is a suffocating, buzzing anxiety in the back of your skull, a specific frequency of agitation scientists call food noise. It feels like an itch you can't scratch, and the only way to silence it is to eat. If you have lived this moment 1,000 times in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, I need you to understand something fundamental. You are not weak. You do not lack discipline. You have likely been successful in your career, raised a family, and handled crises. You have discipline. But in this specific arena, you are operating with a hijacked control system. We've been told for decades that the solution to the spare tire and the brain fog is simple. Just eat in moderation. But here is the brutal truth most diet gurus won't tell you. For a brain structurally rewired by modern processed foods, moderation isn't just difficult. It is physiological torture. Asking a food addict to eat in moderation is exactly like handing an alcoholic a shot of whiskey and telling him to just sip it to relax. It's impossible. When you try to moderate against a hijacked dopamine system, you are fighting a war against millions of years of evolutionary programming that has been weaponized against you by food engineers who know exactly how to break your off switch. But there is a secret mechanism buried in your DNA, a kill switch for these cravings. It is a biological reset button that can silence the food noise permanently, essentially rebooting your brain to its factory settings. However, there is a catch. This switch doesn't flip immediately. It only activates after a very specific, uninterrupted window of time without food. And the tragedy is that 99% of people quit right before the switch flips. They give in to the noise moments before the silence comes. By the end of this video, you will have the complete roadmap to flipping that switch. But first, you have to understand the hidden danger beneath the surface, because the first few days of this process are exactly the opposite of what you expect. The hidden danger isn't the calories. It isn't even the visceral fat wrapping around your organs. The silent killer is what you are doing to your dopaminergic reward system. Every time you graze, every time you grab that handful of chips just to take the edge off, you are microdosing your brain with dopamine. You are treating food not as fuel but as a sedative. You are keeping the addiction loop alive, essentially feeding the monster just enough to keep it awake and demanding. The danger isn't the food. It's the fact that your brain has completely forgotten how to be quiet without it. Let's be brutally honest about the first phase of this journey. If you go into intermittent fasting thinking it will be a peaceful, Zen-like experience, you are going to fail. The first 72 hours to 1 week is not a diet. It is an exorcism. And like any detox, it is uncomfortable. You might feel irritable, snappy, or profoundly fatigued. But the scariest part is the mental game. You will experience cravings so specific and intense they feel physical. You won't just want food. You will obsess over the texture of a specific donut or the saltiness of a specific chip. Psychologists have a term for this: the extinction burst. Think of it like a high-stakes negotiation gone wrong. If you've always given your brain sugar when it asks, and suddenly you say no, your brain doesn't just shrug and accept it. It screams louder. It throws a chemical tantrum to force you to give in. So when you feel terrible on day 2, realizing something critical, that discomfort is not sickness. It is proof the intervention is working. You aren't failing. You are starving the ghost. But why does it feel like boredom? Why does the world seem so gray? This brings us to a concept called downregulated dopamine receptors. Think of your brain like a crowded, noisy workshop. Because you have been eating constantly, the music, dopamine, has been playing at maximum volume 24/7. To protect itself from going deaf, your brain puts in earplugs. It removes dopamine receptors. This is tolerance. Now, imagine you start fasting. The music stops. But here is the missing piece. Your brain still has the earplugs in. The result is silence. An uncomfortable, understimulated silence. You feel bored and restless. This is the chemical basis of withdrawal. Your brain is starved of stimulation and hasn't had time to take the earplugs out yet. There is another layer to this deception: hunger versus memory. This brings us to ghrelin. Ghrelin is famous as the hunger hormone, but that's an oversimplification. Ghrelin is a learning hormone. It is a timekeeper. If you have eaten lunch at 12 p.m. for 20 years, your body learns that pattern. At 11:45 a.m., your body spikes ghrelin in anticipation. It's a conditioned response, just like Pavlov's dog. The hunger you feel in the first week isn't a signal that you are out of fuel. It is a signal that your body is confused because you missed a scheduled appointment. But the real villain, the reason you feel tired and foggy, is insulin. For most men over 40, insulin levels are chronically high. Insulin is a storage hormone. It locks the doors to your fat cells. When you stop eating, your body should switch to burning fat. But it can't because the insulin is still too high. It's like having a tanker truck full of fuel attached to your body. That's your body fat. But the pump is locked, so the engine starts sputtering. This is the friction point where 90% of men quit. They think, I'm too old for this. No, you don't need to eat. You need to push through until the insulin drops and the doors unlock. Because once they unlock, usually between week 2 and 4, the kill switch finally flips. You wake up one morning and the buzzing anxiety is gone. The constant negotiation, can I have that snack? Goes quiet. The radio static cuts out, and for the first time in years you have a clear signal. This is the moment your brain realizes the sugar drip is gone and switches to a superior fuel source. You transition from a sugar burner to a fat burner. The hero here is the ketone body. When insulin drops, your liver breaks down that dangerous visceral fat and converts it into ketones. Ketones are not just fuel, they are superfuel. Glucose is dirty fuel. It burns quick and hot, creating oxidative stress, exhaust fumes. Ketones burn clean and steady. This creates a paradox. You are eating less food than in years, yet you feel more alive and sharper than ever. This happens because fasting lowers inflammation in the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus regulates your weight and hunger. When you are addicted to food, it becomes inflamed and resistant to leptin, the I'm full hormone. The wire is cut. Fasting repairs the wire. Suddenly your brain gets the message. We have plenty of energy. We don't need to be hungry. But the transformation goes deeper. We need to talk about BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. In the ancestral world, if you hadn't eaten in 3 days, you needed to be smarter and faster to hunt, or you would die. So, evolution built a mechanism where fasting triggers a massive surge in BDNF. Think of it as Miracle-Gro for your brain. It triggers the growth of new neurons, specifically in the prefrontal cortex, the CEO of your brain. This area handles impulse control. Addiction damages it. Fasting physically rebuilds the hardware you need to say no. I want to pause and ask you, when you get a craving, what is its texture? Is it the crunch of salt, the melt of chocolate, or the heavy sedation of pasta? Let me know down below. Identifying your dopamine trigger is the first step to dismantling it. While the mental clarity is incredible, a physical change happens around the 1-month mark that changes how you experience pleasure. The palate reset. We live in a world of hyper-palatable foods engineered to overload your sensory system. When you eat this daily, you become blinded to regular light. Your taste buds become desensitized. An apple tastes like cardboard. But when you fast, you remove the overstimulation. You step into the dark room and your eyes adjust. Physiologically, fasting accelerates zinc turnover, which is critical for regenerating taste buds. Suddenly, you break your fast with a steak and asparagus, and it explodes with flavor. You aren't forcing yourself to eat clean. Your body starts craving real nutrition because it can finally taste it again. The artificial stuff starts to taste chemical and fake. This isn't just a preference change, it's a biological recalibration. Now I see the hesitation in the comments. Is this an eating disorder? Am I starving myself? We need to distinguish between restriction and structure. An eating disorder is driven by fear and emotional punishment. It is chaotic. Intermittent fasting is driven by logic and metabolic efficiency. Think of it like a budget. If you spent money recklessly every hour, you'd go bankrupt. Fasting is a budget for your insulin. By providing a rigid structure, I eat within this window and not outside of it, you remove decision fatigue. You don't have to negotiate with yourself 20 times a day. The answer is simply, not now. This builds distress tolerance. You learn you can feel an urge and let it pass. That is not a disorder, that is psychological freedom. And we cannot forget the ultimate cleanup crew, autophagy. This is Nobel Prize-winning science. When you stop eating for 17+ hours, your cells look for energy. They scavenge old, damaged proteins and cellular junk, breaking it down for fuel. This happens everywhere, including the vascular system. This is why many men report improvements in blood pressure and sexual function after long-term fasting. You are clearing out the pipes and taking your body into the shop for a deep cleaning. But everything we've discussed, the brain repair, the taste buds, the autophagy, leads to one final, ultimate transformation. This is the payoff. Imagine your life 6 months from now. Intermittent fasting stops being a diet. It becomes a state of being. You transition from being a consumer, a victim of marketing and broken biology, to being the owner of your body. You achieve food sovereignty. Imagine walking past a bakery or driving past your favorite fast food joint. In the past, this triggered a war in your mind. The white-knuckling, the bargaining. Now, you notice the smell, acknowledge it, and feel nothing. No struggle, no panic. Just calm indifference. You see a donut for what it is, sugar and fried fat, rather than comfort. This is true freedom. Freedom isn't the ability to eat whatever you want. It is the ability to not eat what you don't need. It's the confidence of knowing you can go 24 hours without food and be completely fine. You are no longer tethered to the fridge. You save time. You save money. You become efficient. However, I must leave you with a warning. This is a garden, not a statue. You have to tend to it. The neural pathways of your old addiction, those superhighways in your brain equating stress with eating, never truly vanish. They just get overgrown. They become dormant. If you return to constant grazing, you can wake the monster up. Vigilance is required. But the difference is, the struggle is replaced by the joy of how good you feel. You won't want to go back because you love the energy and clarity of the new you too much. You realize fasting isn't about taking food away. It's about giving yourself back the power to choose. If this perspective shifted something for you, hit that like button. It helps share this message of freedom with other men staring into their fridge at 9 p.m. Subscribe if you're ready to master your biology. Also, click the video on the screen right now to stay connected because it is the key to unlocking the next level of your health improvement journey. I'll see you there.